Bueno, buenas noches, bienvenidos a este conversatorio de clausura. Esto que acabamos de ver es el maravilloso tráiler de una todavía más maravillosa película, fascinante película que se llama When Forever Dies, que es nuestra película de clausura. Está disponible hoy y mañana a través de Filmin Latino, así que por favor no se la pierdan. Y espero que ya la hayan visto, porque ahora vamos a conversar con su director, Peet Gelderblom, que está en Ámsterdam, donde ya es de madrugada, pero bueno, hizo un espacio para platicar con nosotros y para platicar con la doctora Itzia Fernández acerca de esta maravilla, lo que acabo de nombrar, un clásico instantáneo del cine de reapropiación. Entonces voy a presentarlos a la doctora, en primer lugar a la doctora Itzia Fernández. Muchas gracias, Itzia, por estar aquí. Gracias por acompañarnos. Y, por supuesto, al director de When Forever Dies, Peet Gelderblom. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your film with us.
Sure.
Para mejor poder llevar esta conversación más tranquilos y que no, sobre todo, no les eche yo a perder la experiencia con mi mal traducción, la vamos a dejar en inglés. Entonces, al final voy a tratar de hacer, y Itzia me ayudará a hacer como un resumen por si se les escapó algo. Pero bueno, vamos a dejar a platicar con Peet en inglés. Thank you so much, Peet. We are very happy. This is our closing film for this wonderful edition of Ultra Cinema, the 9th edition. And I will let you with Itzia to speak about your wonderful movie, and see you at the end of the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this conversatory. Peet, thanks a lot for having the time and this joyful moment with us.
Sure.
You are welcome to the Ultra Familia Ultra Cinema. And you will remember, I hope, with the years that once you are part of this family, you are always welcome in Mexico. We hope that finally we'll have the chance to meet tete-a-tete in the real way. But happily, the paradox of these things is that we can talk with you. Well, I want to introduce your film, introduce you. Peet Gelderblom is a director, filmmaker of When Forever Dies. And I'm going to put, for the people that are watching us, I will put many links on the Facebook account, so that you can, if you haven't seen the film yet, just remember, as Micha said, that is today and tomorrow. It's online, it's free.
Go see it.
Yeah, so go and see it. And I think the first thing very important to introduce When Forever Dies is to quote you. This is a film made of many films: silent movies, trick films, newsreels, propaganda, animation, advertising, burlesque, experimental, and educational shorts, largely unearthed from the Eye Filmmuseum archives, were painstakingly curated and cleverly remixed to create a kaleidoscopic sensory experience. Believe it or not, all those bits and pieces together form a multi-layered narrative with a beginning, middle, and end, featuring recognizable characters you can believe in: forever man and forever woman. I think this is a wonderful way to introduce your film. It's a great, I think, metafiction film, metafiction cinema. And the first thing I will like to ask you is how did it happen? How did you decide to make this film? And how long did it take you?
Right. Yeah, I can start with the last part of your question. It took me 2 years to make it.
Okay.
But I have always been a filmmaker, but I've always had a shadow career as a film critic online, and I made different things. I started writing criticism, video or essays, and that criticism online became more and more creative. At a certain moment, fiction started to seep through my essays, and I started to draw and make cartoons and comics. And at a certain moment, I started messing around with the film themselves to say something about them in the form of video essays. And I've also re-edited a film by Brian De Palma, and that turned out really well because he liked it so much that it's actually now the director's cut. That film was Raising Cain. And I made many movie mashups and things like that. And in those movie mashups, what I really liked about them, what I like to use them for, is to use the rules of continuity against themselves. It's really easy that if you take two films and you suggest some sort of logic and you stick to the rules of editing, like the 180-degree rule or the Kuleshov effect, that people will actually they will swallow anything you give them, even if it's the total opposite of the original films. And that was such a joy to do that at a certain moment I started figuring, wouldn't it be cool to make a feature-length film in this way? And at a certain moment I was inspired because I saw the trailer for Arcadia. That's a film by Paul Wright. And Paul Wright had worked together with the BFI. And the trailer looked really nice, but I couldn't see the film anywhere. But I just thought that's such a good idea to go to something like the BFI and make a film together from archival material. And here in Holland, the obvious choice is Eye Filmmuseum.
Sure.
So I actually, that's what I did. I just I made an appointment and started a conversation to see if they would be interested, if they would let me mess around with their archive, so to speak.
Okay, so one of the questions I wanted to ask you it's about this interaction with film archives when you are a filmmaker and you want to recycle, you want to reappropriate their archives. What do you think about the policies of open access in general in film archives, and especially about found footage practices, and especially about Eye in your experience? Because they have, since the late 80s of 20th century, really like an amazing open policy for these kind of film practices.
Yeah, that's I didn't know much about that when I went there for the first time, but I was actually really surprised that they are very open to creative reuse of their archive. And I think that's just wonderful, because we should honor what's in archives and we should show what is in archives. But I also feel that you shouldn't see it as dead artifacts from the past. I think we should also struggle with it. We should reflect on it. We should turn it around and deal with it in our own way, because that's how film stays alive. At least that's what I think. And people nowadays, there will maybe be quite a high barrier for people to look at really old films, because they're totally silent, at least in the way that they are preserved, and things take longer, and it's very much of its time. And if you creatively give it a spin, you can actually make it appeal again to a modern audience. And I think that's always a good idea, because if they go see something that seems modern and hip, they see all this stuff and they start wondering, wow, where does this come from? This is actually really nice. And they will put the effort in, discovering what is out there in the first place. So that is something that I think is really important. You should open up your legacy and show it to people, but also have artists, try different stuff with it. I think it leads to wonderful things.
I just this idea, I think, is very important for us, because I mean, I think your film is part, and yourself now, part of the new generation that is reinterpreting these film archives. Lyrical Nitrate was made with and about the Desmet film collection that you used. So to have impressions from you about the Desmet collection, it will be very interesting if you want to develop this idea. And also the other great collection they have is Bits and Pieces.
Yeah.
That is a collection that was very bizarre when they decided to create it, because it's made of unknown, mainly film fragments, and they only have numbers to be noticed in their catalog.
Yeah.
And I think also what it's wonderful is how you use scientific films. I mean, it's a huge monumental work. What you have done is between 1878 and 2002. It's great, and
it's 125 years of cinema.
Yeah, 125. I mean, it's more than a century, and also advertising, travelogues, home movies. Silent
animation.
movies, and animation. I really enjoy how you use animation from the Eye Filmmuseum, because it's part of their greatest collections itself, because the Netherlands has a huge tradition in animation cinema.
Yeah, I agree.
So if you would like to develop about these film collections.
Yes, absolutely. Actually, you are naming the Bits and Pieces collection, which is their collection of, of course, archives keep complete films. But what I started to do is they also get just a film roll from something that they have no idea what it is, or they will just have one film strip. And I started looking into the Bits and Pieces archive because there wouldn't be issues of rights with this, and I actually really like the thought that I could be. These are all snippets of film, and they are wonderful in their own right, but they have lost their context. So it has no beginning, it has no end. It just is. It is weird, or it is funny, or it is beautiful, but that's it. And when it's over, you're like, well, I don't know. And one of the reasons for doing this film was actually to find a way to take these little fragments and think of something around them, to create a new context for them, so that they could be part of a story. And so that's the first thing I did. I actually looked through their archives, started at the Bits and Pieces collection. And at first I started to become really frustrated, actually, because I saw some wonderful stuff, but I really did feel like it is all loose sand, as we say in Holland. It is so, a thing here, a thing there. I didn't see a way to combine them yet. And it was only after diving really into their archives that I found some other stuff. And at a certain moment, I got an idea from two things that I had seen that suggested to me that there was a story to tell. And the first thing that I had seen was actually from a sex education video.
Okay.
It's a fragment from the Bits and Pieces collection, and that's the knights on horseback that are riding towards this mountain, a glass mountain, and on top of the mountain stands this woman. Very romantic idea. And one of the knights reaches the woman first, and he goes down on his knees, and he asks her hand. So that was an image that really stuck with me, but I didn't know what to do with it. And then I went and saw a lot of other pictures, and then I also started to see footage of witches and women that were declared witches. And it was the complete opposite, the one is all about devotion for the female, and the other was about putting the female down. And it started me thinking, and I thought, okay, if the first image would be the beginning of a relationship, and the other image would be the ending of a relationship, then I have a story to tell. But more than that, I would actually have a question to ask, and that is, how can love turn into hate? And if you arrive at hate, is there a way back to love? So that was, all of a sudden, that was the idea. And I immediately figured out that it had to become a sort of archival fiction. And I know I could pull it off, because the basic trick is to let the audience know that all the men you see are the same men, and all the women you see are the same. And I had done that before. In one of my movie mashups, I had actually created a dialogue between God and Satan.
Okay.
And I made I edited together from 25 different movies.
Okay.
And actually, if you stuck to some rules and you gave it some logic, an audience was actually perfectly able to follow that. So I said to myself, okay, this is the basic idea. I will concentrate on scenes that will feature either a man or a woman or them together, and not so much other people. And I will just show scenes of a relationship, and I will actually show how a relationship can start very good, but how it can actually sour in the long run.
Okay. Well, now you are really like, thanks for your generosity, because you are really explaining what happened in your process to develop your storytelling, but also the forms. I love the figures that you develop, and this makes sense because you make mashup, you make video essays, you write about films, so you know how to express yourself in this film support with the sound, with the visuality, the and also the intertitles. I'm so curious about how did you design the intertitles. Um, Let me ask you at the same time, how was your process with the sound effects and the music? It's really wonderful. And also with this multi-screen gesture you are making, not all the time, but just in the right time. I was amazed with what you were doing with that, because that take us to the question how the filmmaker is asking the spectator to work with.
Right.
Your eyes are going to concentrate, focus in which screen among all these screens, and how many times you multiply them, and with these gorgeous colors also. It is really like very a plastic experience, very sensorial and analytical at the same time.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. All right. Well, let's start with the titles. I figured I wanted to tell a pretty long story, and I am all about visual storytelling, but I also figured I'm probably gonna need something, a tool to deepen this story just by visuals alone. And I thought of intertitles because that's a very traditional way that is still completely legitimate, I feel, because I am from a generation, I've read a lot of comics, and that's also a combination of text and images.
Sure.
So it made sense actually to use these titles, and that, of course, it gave me a way to have these figures on the screen say anything I like. So I made it myself a little easier in that way. And also the way I designed them was inspired by comics and graphic novels, actually. I wanted the language to be timeless, like in Neil Gaiman's The Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
He has that language that I really love, and I wanted the texts to be really short. If you look at comics by Frank Miller, he will use these really small captions, really small bursts, and it works so well. Because if you look at Nosferatu, which is a wonderful film, but it has these huge intertitles, and sometimes you're reading whole letters in between the images. And for me, as a modern film viewer, that would take me out. That takes me out of the rhythm of a film. So that's why I figured they have to be short. And what's also what you sometimes see in comics is that they change the letter style and the style of the word balloon to reflect the different voices that are speaking. And that's what I also decided to do, to have a male title card and a female title card. And for everyone who's speaking has its own design, so that you so that you're never wondering as an audience, like, who is saying this? Yeah, it's immediately clear. Yeah, so that is as far as the titles are concerned. Let me see. Oh, then you talk about the sound. Yeah, of course, the narrative is the big thing that holds it all together, that clicks every piece into place. But the way, but how I could make those pieces stick was really sound. And I knew that from the beginning, but it's as the process has gone on, as I continued in the process, it became more and more important that there would be a sort of unified sonic soundscape. That it actually helps to make the film a whole, and it gives the viewer something emotional to hold on to. And there's a lot of sound effects and Foley. Actually, I realized, sometimes I was ready with a sequence, and I would look at the sequence and I would think, I really think the sequence is nice, the editing is nice, and it's nicely done on the music, but it feels like a sequence. It's like it's almost looking at a music promo, and I missed something, and I realized I had to put in Foley effects, the sound of feet walking and of people breathing, and that suddenly made the images real. It made a story real. And what I also liked is that because there are no speaking voices, I actually had an opportunity to make the sounds that are usually in the background, ambient sounds, to actually put them on the front, to put them forward in the mix. And that makes for a very very dreamlike experience. You're just really wrapped in an atmosphere, and it's very powerful. That's something that I like to do. And there's a lot of music in the film, because if I would keep things if I would keep things silent for too long, the scenes stopped working. And also I had to give myself some sort of backbone to actually create this, because I was, of course, working from nothing, or it's all separate things. So what I usually did is I would find a piece of music. It would be classical, but it could also be rock or electronica or whatever.
That's very, very nice.
Yeah.
I want to underline a lot. This is really extremely passionate and joyful and dramatic and also playful. All the type of music you use and the sound effects.
Yes. Well, thank you. Yeah, I figured it's. Well, in the end, it turned out to be 109 minutes. So you have to keep the audience attention for a very long time, and you want them on the edge of their seats. So I figured, let's surprise them. If a scene plays on a piece of classical music, then let the next sequence be with rock music. Yeah, so that actually helped me to have music that I could edit on, and later I would replace music with other cues, with better cues, or I have made 2 pieces of music myself, because they were so, that I had something so, I had my mind set on something so specifically that I couldn't find it anywhere. So I just had to make it myself. And at a certain moment, I started working with composer Peter Straatman. That's actually a composer with which I've worked before, and I told him, can you take a look into your archive and maybe send me some music that you have maybe once created for a commercial or for whatever work, but it was never used, or just things you may have lying around. Just send it over to me. And he did that, and there were quite a few of those music cues worked beautifully in under whole sequences that I had already edited. That was, for example, there's the war sequence in the film. That is, if you look at the editing, it's actually really staccato. And I originally edited on a piece of music that was almost like Hans Zimmer fanfare, really big, huge. And it worked, but I also thought, I don't know, it's like I painted red roses red with that music. So I wanted something else under there. And Peter had a piece of music, and it was a requiem. It's just a piano with a choir, and it's very tragic. And I put it under the scene, and it worked so beautifully. It's incredible, and it became much more interesting because the images are just an assault of all the bad things that people do, and the music actually made you feel something about what you saw. So they work together, and that's what we've also we've continued to that's what we continue doing. Actually, he also became the re-recording mixer, Peter. Okay. And I'm really glad with that, because I really feel that the sound mix is actually, in the end, has become really musical because he is a composer.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that there's something so important about what you are saying, because when Eye Filmmuseum in those years, the Netherlands Film Museum started preserving, restoring, and programming silent films from their collections, it was very important to learn the audience that they were supposed to be with music, with sound, because that's the way it was done in this year.
Yeah, they never looked at it in silence.
Exactly. No. So you are continuing this very far away, long time ago practice with the pianoforte, with opera, but also with very modern music.
Yeah.
And that's why Lyrical Nitrate, that is a production from the Film Museum, was made with opera. And that's why it is called Lyrical Nitrate, because nitrate was supposed to be played with music, shown with music. And there's also the work of Gustav Deutsch that happily died last year. And he used also lots of fragments from Bits and Pieces and from Eye Filmmuseum, and he was using more in Filmist, this trilogy that is so amazing about using film archives. He was using very modern music, very, very abstract music. And what I found wonderful, and that's why Micha and me, we say, of course, it's an instant classic, your film, because it's universal in the sense that you are part of a tradition, but at the same time, you are feeding the tradition with your own with your own interpretation, and to hear about the collaboration with
Peter
Stratman is great. But wow, with his own archives. So it sounds like a huge puzzle with all the archives.
Actually, the two musical pieces that I made myself, they were actually made completely from samples. So these are this is also fragments.
Wow.
And all the sound effects that I used, there was only one sound actually that we recorded because I couldn't find it.
Wow.
It was somebody tapping on the inside of a fridge, and I just, I couldn't find the sound, and everything I put in place of that sound, it would sound fake. So that's the only thing that we actually recorded. But for the rest, it's all found sounds. It's all from archives.
I like a lot that phrase, found sounds. Also.
Yeah. And actually, what your I had a similar epiphany about color, how it used to be and how it is now, and how I decided to continue it with this film. Most of the people who see the film, they are really just amazed by the colors. They are very vivid and very powerful, and I think they are as well. Eye Filmmuseum has always been, because there used to be a time when archival images were kept black and white. And that was actually the fashion. But Eye Filmmuseum has really been one of the
They became an avant-garde preservationist way of looking in another way the color inside the movies, completely different, including non-fiction, and showing us war films from the First War in color, the way they were.
Because I think about I forgot the exact number, but maybe 80% of all very early films were actually in color.
90%.
90%, yeah.
90%.
Actually,
all around the world.
90, yeah.
90, no, all around the world. And very few film archives preserve them in color. Because of the lack of budget and of knowledge also.
They transferred them over to black and white film because that had a longer shelf life.
And it was cheaper also. And they destroyed in conscious and unconscious the nitrate. Now it's forbidden. You should keep it. The masters, the matrix should be preserved as itself, the nitrate now. But since the 2000s, but it's amazing that they preserve the Smet collection in colors. 90% of the Smet collection is in colors.
And so actually, When Forever Dies is a sort of I don't know the English word, but it's like it's showing you almost every kind of applied color from the early ages of cinema that's been done. Hand-colored film, tinted film, toned film, stencil-colored film, but also Technicolor, 2-strip and 3-strip, and Eastman color. Kodak Sonochrome, everything. And when it actually was really late in the process, we were color grading film, and the pieces that had color in them were so powerful. They became so powerful because we drew all those colors out, that when there was a longer black and white sequence after that, the film lost some of its energy.
Okay.
And that's actually when I decided, also because of what we just talked about, that a lot of the black and white films were actually in color, but they were saved on black and white copies. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I just, for selected shots and for selected sequences, if I would just apply digitally an emulation of classic film looks, just as I see fit, so I would put the sickly green of Nosferatu. I would splice it in there somewhere, and they were so creative with color. You've seen a lot of silent movies, so you know this. You will see a woman in the room who's lighting a candle, and the room will be blue, and when she lights the candle, all of a sudden, bang, the whole frame is yellow.
Monochromatic.
Yeah,
it's really wonderful.
But that's such a bold use of color, and you don't see it anywhere. And I actually checked descriptions of Kodak Sonochrome. There still exist descriptions of each color, what they wanted this kind of color to represent. What if it was for exotic scenery, they would use a specific color. If royalty was involved, they would use purple. Of course, when you're in the woods, it's green. When it's at night, it is blue. But it goes much further than that. There were whole theories behind it, and I actually started to apply all those kinds of colors because it's relatively easy to do now.
Yeah,
digital tools. What you just have to. You can select the colors from the actual examples, and you can apply it without touching the luminance of the film. So in when you make it black and white again, it's exactly as it was, but I would just only apply the colors, and I think it really made the movie much more powerful again.
And it's very powerful. And I wanted to ask you about something that is really very, very important in your film. That is your gender point of view. As a male, I found it wonderful how. And you started this conversation with the image of the venerated woman, this woman that is the wife and at the same time the beloved lover, etc. And the witch, and I think the roles are really making echoes of film histories around the world. So I would like to ask you about this gender point of view. You are all the time working, and because I think people that haven't seen the film will enjoy a love story. Love-hate story, love-hate love, hate love because it comes and goes. A universal love story. You can only hate when you love, indeed, I think. Yeah. And how what do you think? Also, because after all this huge work, is really like. I think your film should be used to show how we have developed gender in film history. It's really it's really like very. It goes like it has you, like you said, in your seat. You want to know what happened what is going to happen with this couple.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is that I could use film history as allegory. I could use film history as psychological warfare. So much about the film is about perception, because I believe when it comes to gender conflicts, I think those are really in the eye of the beholder. I think men and women are completely equal, but it is the way we are looking at each other that sort of defines the way that it balances out. And it's very funny when you look at the film, you actually really do see how each gender has been looking at the other gender and has been stereotyping each other, because you see the woman as a virgin, as a housemaid. You see her as a mother.
Yeah.
You see her as a whore. It's like every stereotype is there, and it's actually the same thing for the men. The man is a knight in shining armor. He's a cowboy, but he's a lover. But he's also a stalker, and he also becomes a killer. So it's all. I'm using film history to show how the two sexes have been looking at each other. So it's all yeah. It's actually very much about cinema as well, this film. There's more than a hint of Plato's allegory of the cave, in the sense that they are continuously taking what they see for granted. It's about how, for example, you see the man, you see him projecting his ideal of a woman on his wife, and that projecting he's actually literally doing by showing images of the perfect housewife in a 1950s commercial, or a sexy stripper in a stag film from the 1960s. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I use 1930s peasant dramas to show the actual wife having a really hard time to live up to these ideals. So yes, that is that you've seen that very correctly. But I also think that it's more. It's not just about gender, because, and I already realized that from the beginning, when I found the initial idea, how can love turn into hate? I thought this was a really good way to actually zoom in on a micro level to show what has been going on in the world around us for some time right now, because I believe there is a lot of hate in the world right now. And I just couldn't understand it. I thought, like, what's happening? It seems like we were more intelligent as a people in the 90s than we were now. So that's also what this film is about. It's about polarization and discrimination and the lack of harmony. And I just thought this was a really powerful way, a very simple way to play with that idea and to let the audience think about it.
Wow, it's great to hear about all this process, because indeed it's about gender, but also like gender, it's related to everything in life, and it's affected also by economy, by politics, by
I just used male and female as sort of the ultimate enemies, the ultimate two groups that come together and fight.
And this universal story about Fausto, that also because you have religious imaginary playing around. It's really interesting how it, at least for Occident, is really like universal in this sense. Wow, Pete. I think well, we're around the hour, and I think we talk about everything. And the most important thing is that you can watch the movie today and tomorrow, Monday. And just to, it's not a spoiler, but you can see a Dreyer film that is wonderful, reappropriated. Dennis Hooper, when I recognized him, I was really like, I want to see him again. So young. Asta Nielsen, Buñuel stuff. It's at the same time with Ferric and so many films that you are going to see in completely another context. And with
most of them unknown or seldom seen.
Most of them, yeah. Thanks a lot, Pete.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful conversation. We learn a lot. Your movie is a film story. It can be compared with a film story by itself. If you see it, you learn a lot of story about techniques, about some, as you said, different kinds of films, the color, tint and tone, two-strip Technicolor, three-strip Technicolor. It's a journey through film history, and we are really honored that you shared your film with us, and you share it, and we can show it to Mexican audiences, because for this festival, that kind of things, the people know that they can go to the archives and knock on the door and ask for things. It's important. We need to start asking to archives for materials, because the materials are there for us to use, for us to watch, for us to.
Absolutely. And you don't have to ruin the originals. All the originals that I used are still there. They can be seen, but it's very important to struggle with it, to still to keep it relevant.
So it was a real honor for us to show your film. I told you it's an instant classic for us. We love silent film. We love archives. We love appropriation. We love the experimentation. So this was a perfect film for us to close this quite interesting edition of the festival.
Yeah.
So from the bottom,
I want to tell Pete that Abel Francisco Amador from Aguascalientes, that is a state in Mexico, the country, he says that it's a magnificent movie. And then Anaí Estudillo, that is Nayar Lab, that is our partners doing the film festival Ultracinema from Tepic, Nayarit. Incredible movie that we have for closing today. And then Ale Busa from LA. She's in LA.
Mm-hmm.
She loves bits and pieces. You have kisses from Bruno Varela, one of our beloved filmmakers, our greatest silent film musician, Jose Maria Serralde. He gives hugs. Antonio Arango, also one of our greatest filmmakers. He said thanks. And Chema Gantz, he says thanks a lot.
Wow, thank you all. I hope we can find it later on Facebook. Would love to read all those comments. Yeah.
So Pete, from the bottom of our heart, thank you so much for sharing your film. Thank you so much for being here. And I need to say something in Spanish, so
sure, go ahead.
Muchas gracias a todos los que siguieron este conversatorio de clausura. Estamos muy contentos y agradecidos con Pete por haber compartido su película. Y bueno, con esto digamos que oficialmente clausuramos Ultracinema 2020, esta edición pandémica, desde Tepic, Nayarit, desde Tepoztlán, desde todo el mundo, que fue maravilloso. Y bueno, los invitamos a que a las 7:30 se conecten de nuevo, porque vamos a tener nuestra entrega de premios. No vamos a entregarle premios a ningún cineasta, porque no hacemos eso en Ultracinema. Nos vamos a entregar premios a nosotros mismos. Y además vamos a anunciar la sede para el próximo año. Entonces, los esperamos a las 7:30. Pete, thank you so much. We are this festival is itinerant, so at 7:30 in half an hour we will announce the city for the next year. So the party is almost over. So
very cool. And I just want to say that if people see this conversation later and you guys have already stopped with your film festival, it will also play at Fisura.
Okay.
So there might also be a chance to see it.
We hope that we will be able to go to the screen room, to the cinema.
Yeah.
And with some luck, maybe next year, or maybe once we can meet in person.
That would be lovely.
We can. Will be amazing to share the screen with you and screen the film in a proper film theater with you in the theater. So we just cross our fingers.
And to share some ultra love.
Thank you so much, Pete. So hasta luego. Nos vemos en un rato. Thank you so much, Pete. See you next time.
Bye.
Hasta luego.
Bye.